That's really fascinating. And you mentioned this at the opening of your book. Um, and you describe your own near-death experience and thinking about, the possibility of what could have happened and so forth, and how that stimulated a different process of thinking about the near-death experience, as you call it, of the nation of Israel, for example, in the Babylonian exile. And I'm sure we'll get into that a bit more later on. But you said something very interesting about memory and trauma, which of course is a big theme in your work now. And you said that you're familiar now with how trauma can cause a loss of memory,
Yeah.
which is interesting to me. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you relates to the reliability of traumatic memories or memories of trauma, because of course memories of trauma can be extremely powerful, even possessing and controlling,
Yeah.
but they're not necessarily always accurate. So let me phrase this by actually referring to something that you wrote, I believe. You said that trauma can strip away illusions, and I understood that to mean that it helps you get down to the real reality. You strip away extraneous things, and so it can be a very powerful catalyst for expressing truth. At the
Yeah.
same time, of course, trauma can cause memory to be infamously inaccurate. So,
Hmm.
how do you square this circle, so to speak, of truth that is expressed through a memory that may not be very accurate? May or may not be. Let me put it that way. May or may not be very accurate.
Yeah, no, that's a really important and interesting question, and it relates to the Bible in some interesting ways. Just the thing it reminds me of is some studies of trauma that talk about survivors of the Nazi death camps talking with great certainty and detail about how many chimneys they remembered seeing in some of those camps, and then researchers going back to those camps and archaeologically reconstructing them and finding that in fact they had a different number of chimneys. It's just simply in terms of actual verifiable reality wrong. At the same time, there was a certain currency to that memory for that person that was profound and very important. It was important to the person talking to talk about that detail. And so that sort of raises, I think, different forms of truth that people have when they tell their story. And as a survivor of trauma tells their story and about various kinds of details, some of those details will be things you could have recorded with a video camera if you'd been there, and others may not be. At the same time, there's another sort of truth that's being conveyed by that survivor that's not easily captured on video, and that starts to get us into, so what sort of truth is being conveyed? What is important in that story? Because telling story has been proven to be really important to people's recovery process, both communities and individuals. And it often is, it's a complex thing. And I would argue the same is somewhat true of the Bible, that at least within the Christian circles that I am more familiar with, there's often a big debate about whether the Bible is historically accurate on this or that or the other point. As if you went back with a video, you could capture each detail exactly correctly. And in fact, the inspiration of the Bible is seen as being based on that somehow.
Mhm.
Whereas I would argue a lot of the truth of the Bible really isn't the kind of thing one would find in verifying that something happened in a way that sort of matches our current ideas of history. It's these deeper truths that are being conveyed by the community over time. As I speak of it sometimes to students and others, there's a deeper music in the Bible that people who've gone through trauma, whether communities or individuals, can hear. And their ears are sort of tuned onto that level of frequency, and it's a different kind of truth. And it's not often easily encompassed in a simple propositional statement that, like, okay, this is the point. It's something else. And that was something I tried to get at some with my book. But I think in some ways I'm just trying to say that part of the power of the Bible and the thing that made it survive where many much more famous literatures of its time died out is that sort of deeper music, that other form of memory That's not accurate in a modern style historical way, but is profoundly accurate to the experience of trauma in a different way.
Shalom, I'm here to invite you to come with us on a journey of discovery into the Jewish context and culture that will forever change the way you read and interpret the Bible. As you slowly go through our self-paced, on-demand program in Jewish studies relevant for Christians, you will gain ability to discover the original meaning of the biblical texts. You will see the nuance hidden behind our best and faithful translations, and to interpret these ancient texts in their original meaning. At Israel Bible Center, we provide you with the state-of-the-art, simple-to-use technology. This way, you can study on your own from the comfort of your own home, even towards your certificate in the Jewish context and culture. This study will strengthen your ministry as you continue to serve God. We will guide you through our large collection of crash courses by our fascinating faculty and roundtable talks with leading world scholars. Our weekly Israel Bible magazine, as well as Israel Bible podcast that focuses on the land of Israel, will assist us along the way. We believe that the Bible does not need to be rewritten, but it needs to be carefully reread.
Click the link and register today to our wide variety of biblical courses.